Hello folks, it's FETA time. So it's time today to learn how to make feta, learn a little bit about feta, and then we'll go visit the baby goats. So I am Kate Johnson with The Art of Cheese, and this is Friday Formage from the farm, although you might be watching this on a day other than Friday, because after I tape the live session, I will upload this to YouTube. At any rate, I have a little cheese making school, The Art of Cheese, which is located on my dairy goat farm, Briargate Farm in Longmont, Colorado. And it's spring, so the dairy goats are having babies. And last week, I told you we were waiting on our first doe to kid, and she did the very next day, which was her official due date. So it was very diligent of her, and she had triplets, and they're all doing great. So at the end of this demonstration, I'm going to take you down there to meet the new babies. But what I thought I would do is do a quick walk through a cheese making demonstration of feta. We do have a cheese making school where we teach virtually. We will eventually get back to in-person classes. And if you were to ever take our feta class, it's about an hour long for the virtual. It's probably more like an hour and a half to 2 hours for a live class. So I'm going to truncate that to about 10 or 15 minutes in a demonstration. So I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm going to give you an idea of just how easy this cheese is. I mean, feta to me is a really delicious cheese, has a really big flavor, it's really versatile, you can use it in so many ways, and it's really easy. It's a great beginner cheese. For one thing, it doesn't take very long to make, it's not very difficult to make, and you don't really need any specialized equipment other than maybe some cheesecloth. And you can have feta. Really, you could have feta in a day, but it's better if you give it about a week to kind of ripen and mature. All right, so are you ready to learn how to make feta? I'm going to put my little thing on here and turn you around, and we'll go over to my little demonstration area. All right, so our ingredients for feta are our same ingredients as many cheeses: milk, culture, rennet, and salt. In fact, if you were with me last week, we did a little chev demonstration, and guess what? It was milk, culture, rennet, salt. So many cheeses use these same 4 ingredients. Now, feta is traditionally a sheep or goat milk cheese, but most of the American feta that we are eating is cow milk. So really you could use any of those. Most of us don't have easy access to sheep milk. If you are making a cow milk feta, you could make it with pasteurized, homogenized milk, and it will actually work just fine. Stay away from ultra-pasteurized milk. You could make it with pasteurized but non-homogenized milk. This is even better. You could make it with goat milk. If you don't have goats like I do, you can buy goat milk. Just make sure you don't buy ultra-pasteurized. This brand is a great one if you can get it. And then for culture, we're going to use mesophilic culture. This is probably the most widely used culture in cheese making. Mesophilic meaning medium loving. So most of our softer cheeses use mesophilic. They're lower temperature cheeses, but some hard cheeses use it too. And then we're going to use rennet. Rennet is an enzyme, it's the coagulant, and you can use animal or vegetarian rennet. And then we're going to use salt. I'm going to use kosher salt. Now, my demonstration is a little incomplete just because I can't show you every single step because we would be here for a few hours. So I'm going to explain a few things to you. So starting with milk, this was about a quart of milk. I actually just used pasteurized, homogenized milk for this one. And what I did was heated it up to about 85 to 90 degrees, somewhere in there. Sprinkled a little culture on it, stirred it in, and let it sit for an hour. At that time, that's what we call our initial ripening, where we're converting lactose to lactic acid. Then I came back and I added my rennet. I think this recipe called for half a teaspoon of rennet for a gallon of milk. And we let that sit for about an hour. And now we're ready for the next step. So when we come back, we have a curd, right? That's because the milk has coagulated because of the acidification followed by coagulation. So the next step with this recipe of rennet is we're just going to cut the curd and we're going to stir the curd. No more heating. This isn't cooked. And we're just going to stir it for about 15 minutes. Now, I'm not going to stir it for that whole 15 minutes because I only have you for about 15 minutes. But as I'm doing just a little bit of stirring here, I'll explain why we stir. First of all, right now, this curd is full of whey, right? This is a really wet curd. And when we start just cutting and stirring the curd, we release a lot of that whey, and we have more of our just solids left in the cheese. Now, we want to be gentle with this stir, and we might not stir continuously. Sometimes I'll stir a few times, come back, stir a few times, and, call it good. So at the end of 15 minutes, our curds will be smaller because they'll be more concentrated. They'll be just the solids in our milk, which is like the protein, the butter fat, the calcium, and so on. All right, then after that 15 minutes, we're going to scoop the curds into some cheesecloth. And I'm not going to scoop all of these because I have to do this demonstration twice because I do it over on Instagram as well. But once I've scooped the curds, then I'm going to tie them. And so far this might look a lot like our Chev demonstration last week, except for the fact that we cut the curd and stirred it. We didn't do that with our Chev last week. And if you think about it, feta has a very different texture. So we just get our little bag going, and then we're going to put our little bag to hang. Now, if you were in my demonstration last week where I talked about Chev, we let it hang for about 12 hours. This one's only going to hang for about 4 to 6 hours. And so I started one earlier today to show you what it would look like. It's also going to be a lot different than Chev because if you remember when we did the Chev demonstration, we only used a drop of rennet. This one uses much more rennet, right? A half a teaspoon for a gallon of milk versus 2 drops. And so we're going to get a much firmer curd. So even though the bag itself looks pretty similar to our Chev, the curd inside is a much different texture. It's going to be much firmer. And in fact, you see how it's much, much firmer. It's going to be sliceable. Now, let me just say something before I go too much further about feta. Feta is a salty cheese, right? And how we get that salt into the cheese depends on what type of recipe you're following. The one I'm demonstrating here today is what we call a dry salted feta. And this is the stage where we're going to dry salt it. That means I'm just going to sprinkle salt on these curds, as opposed to a brined feta. That would be where we salt it by putting these slices into brine. And in fact, I don't know if you knew this, but the word feta actually means slice. So either way, we would be slicing. I'm not going to slice this last half because I have to do this again in my Instagram. So you can see these are real wet, but they are firm curds. So at this point, we're going to salt them. And I like to use kosher salt for this. I'm very haphazard in my salting. I tend to not measure a whole lot. I just kind of got the feel for it, much like I cook. But we're going to salt them. And we do salt pretty liberally. And then we're going to let this sit. And guess how long? 24 hours it's going to sit. Now, salt, as you might recall if you've listened to any of my other spiels about salt, salt is obviously for flavor. Salt is also a preservative. Salt also helps to release the whey. So what you're going to find in this 24 hours that this is sitting on the plate is this very, very wet, sloppy curd is going to get drier because it's going to release whey onto the plate. And we're trying to get rid of some of that whey. So what we're going to do during the 24 hours is we're going to come back and drain off the whey about every 8 hours. And we're going to salt again one more time. We're going to flip the curds until they're dry. We want them to stop releasing whey. And for some of you, that might be 24 hours. If you're in a really warm, dry place, that might only take 18 hours. If you're in a really moist, cool place, that might take 36 hours. So the key is you want to keep flipping it and drying off the plate until it's not releasing whey anymore. And in other words, till it looks kind of like a matte finish. And then you're going to just put it into a container like this and put it in your refrigerator. Your regular old refrigerator. You don't even need an aging refrigerator for this. And you're just going to stack them in there and leave it for about a week, 5 to 7 days. So you can see how different this looks than this, right? This is really jello-y and it's really wet. This is much firmer and it's dry. And now this is ready. So it's 5 to 7 days. And like I said, even if you didn't go the whole 5 to 7 days, once it's dry and not releasing whey anymore, it's actually pretty tasty. You could eat it right then, but it's even better about a week later. And then it's done. And so at this point, you can just slice it up and eat it like you would eat feta, put it on a sandwich, a salad. I don't know anybody that puts feta on a sandwich, actually. You can grate it or crumble it. Or you can marinate it. And this is one of my favorite things. So one of the things about dry salted feta is, it's a fresh cheese. It has culture. It ages a little bit. But this will only last maybe 2 or 3 weeks in your refrigerator. You can put it in your freezer. It will get drier and crumblier. Or you can marinate it in oil. So just get yourself some olive oil. And if you want to flavor it in the oil, you can use some kind of a dried herb mix. This is my favorite, believe it or not, Mrs. Dash tomato basil garlic. This is the best feta herb. So what you're just going to do is put a little bit of this feta in a container, just sprinkle a little bit of this dried herb blend, and then cover that up with olive oil. And if you let it sit for, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, those herbs will really plump back up again. In fact, the garlic will look like you'd put fresh garlic in there. Now, anything that's underneath the oil, when you go to store this, will not get moldy. It will last for literally months. I actually have some in my refrigerator that's been in there for a year. Anything under the oil can't get oxygen, so it won't mold. And this just is a great way to make this cheese last a whole lot longer because this cheese, not in the oil, you got maybe 2 or 3 weeks. This cheese, you got a year, So anyhow, that's how easy feta is. Now, there are different recipes that add different things, and so I wouldn't say this is the only way to make feta. This is my favorite way. And I have found that although I do have goats, and so I do make goat feta, when I make it with plain old grocery store milk, I'm amazed how good it tastes. It still tastes like feta. So this is one you don't have to knock yourself out buying super expensive milk for because it really tastes quite good with just a grocery store brand of milk. All right, so are you ready to go see these little baby goats? I promised you we would, so I have to grab my coat. Last week when y'all were here, it was, 60, 65 degrees. Any of you who are in Colorado know we are not at 65 degrees, and in fact, we are expecting a blizzard this weekend. So I have been cleaning goat stalls nonstop, trying to get ready, because once this snow comes, I won't be able to get a wheelbarrow through here. And I have 2 more does, so these does over here are due this weekend, of course. So I'll show you them first, and then we'll go see the babies. So this is Calypso, and she's actually due today. Look how fat she is. But, of course, she'll wait till this weekend when it's snowing. And then this is her mother, and she's due next Tuesday. I hope she's a few days late. And then this is Salsa, who I introduced you to last week. She was very pregnant last Friday, and then Saturday she had her babies. And she did have triplets. So if you have not checked out my other Facebook page yet for Briargate Farm, I live streamed the whole birth. So if you want to see that. But here they are, the cute little babies all in a pile. Aren't they the sweetest little things? Oh my gosh, I have to come out here about 2 or 3 times a day to snuggle them. So we have one girl, this very spotted little one here. Her grandfather is very spotted. And 2 boys. So this nice little red boy and this cute little guy back here. So Salsa's babies are all named after Mexican food. We have different themes. And I think that we're going to call him Tamale and Taquito and Tortilla. Call her Tia for short. So I think that's their names, but until I actually register them, who knows what I'll change my mind to. Oh my goodness, she's so cute, isn't she? So Mom's been a great mom. She's constantly hungry though because she's making a lot of milk to feed these 3 babies. Come back in here, Mom. All right, well, that's it for today. If I can get her to come back in before I have to go back up and do this again. You got to go back in there and take care of your babies. There you go. Whoops. Sorry about that. I got upside down somehow. Okay, there we go. All right. Let me just take this off here and I will say my goodbyes to you. All right, so that's Friday Formage from the farm for this week. And next week, I'm giving some thought to doing paneer. That's another really great beginner cheese. But who knows? I kind of decide on Friday what I'm going to do. All right, well, have a great weekend. If you happen to be in Colorado, stay inside, stay safe, stay warm. We've got all our groceries in and all our goat feed, and we're hoping to just stay put for a few days. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.